Welcome, Pete Dupuis.
Morning, everybody. And I'm not going to talk about my testicles either. Before I start, I just want to share with you a little video here. It'll take about 2 minutes.
Pete and I were flying back from Los Angeles, and a fellow by the name of Blake Makowski, the founder of Tom Shoes, sat down beside Pete and explained his entire one-for-one gifting model for his shoe company. And it inspired both of us to look at doing that exact same model for real estate. And so World Housing was born. Pete was actually writing his master's thesis at the time and had a topic that was similar, and he shifted that topic to analyzing the business model for doing a real estate one-for-one gifting model. Because Sid and I have spent our careers working at the top of the housing pyramid. And what that means is that we sell the finest real estate in the finest places on earth. But what we didn't know is who's at the bottom of the housing pyramid. And so after doing the research, we discovered that those are folks that live in and around garbage dumps. There's 7 billion people that live on earth. There's 3.8 billion people that live on less than $2 a day. And the real shocking statistic, there's 1.2 billion people that live in a slum. Now, when you peel the onion back and you look at who's in the slum, what you find out very quickly is there's people that live in and around garbage dumps. They do that because they feed themselves and they recycle garbage to earn an income. We met a gentleman named Scott Neeson, and Sid and I spent a lot of time on Skype with Scott. We went over and studied his model in Phnom Penh. And it really is a big success story. And thankfully for us, without Scott, we wouldn't have had the boldness to actually go out and try World Housing. Well, a home takes a family from a sense of hopelessness to a sense of hope. The homes that World Housing produce now all of a sudden gives that family hope and they thrive. Not only do we have a fantastic start, we're operating. We have 2 factories open, one being run by Cambodia Children's Fund, another one by Jason Thatcher. And so we know that we can produce 40 homes a month right now. When we got back from that flight with Blake, we went, what a great idea. We know we can make this happen. Given our connections, our desire for social change. So we had an aha moment, and at that point, we knew we were off to the races.
Good creative morning. I'd like to start by thanking Mark for giving us this opportunity to be here today. I think it's a good message that we want to share with you. Our team's here. Thank you for coming out. And I want to thank everyone here for such a great response. I think we've sort of hit an open nerve. And today what I'd like to do is I'd like to take you to Cambodia. How many people here would like to go to Cambodia? So the theme today is discovering, I've taken the ugly part and I've just shifted it a bit. Because I think if you're like me, you've had experiences in your life that can be a little bit ugly. And if you look hard, there's beauty in that ugly. And so today I'm going to contrast beauty and ugly. So I'm going to come back to this later. What do you see there? What you see is a lockable door. It's something that all of us take for granted. But we'll come back to that. So I want to share my story a little bit. Sid Landholt, my business partner of 34 years next month. So we've been at this a long time together. We've learned a lot. We've made a lot of mistakes. We've had some successes. And I want to share with you how this started. So picture 2007. The economy is just racing. We break a world record. We sell this building out in 4 hours. It's called Trump Tower. Trump Tower, Waikiki. $720 million sold in 4 hours. Around the world, online, broke a record. Interesting, we thought we were bulletproof. Everything was just going swimmingly. Had a great business, we were making a profit, we were in all these countries around the world. We actually had just signed on with Lehman Brothers as our partner to open an office in Bangkok. So things are going so well, I decided to go do the West Coast Trail with some friends, and we get on the West Coast Trail. I turned my BlackBerry off. This was the era of the BlackBerry. And there I am, I get off the other end of the West Coast Trail, and I'm told the world had changed. Our partner went bankrupt. One of the largest leading institutions in American history went down. So you want to talk ugly. The next year, we took our company from 270 people down to 40 people. That hurts a lot of people. And for those that were involved in any part of the economy in 2009 or 10, we all know there was a lot of pain. That was ugly. So out of that ugliness came a shift. Sid and I sat down and talked. I said, you know, I don't think I can rip a company apart. I'm a company builder. And thankfully, I've had the same business partner, and he's an operator. He loves to operate things, and part of operations is you got to adjust it sometimes. So I said, you know, I'm going to go back and finish my thesis that I started in 1990. I'm a slow learner. Because that was 2009. So back I go to school, and I thought, okay, I'm going to get excited about finding something. Because, you know, in ugly, if you look hard, there's something there. So off I go, and I return to what I know. Anyone here know what SRO is? All right. I want you to keep your hand up. Who knows SRO? So, of course you do. Tell me what an SRO is. Single room occupant home. Single room occupant home. So just outside the doors here, I started to study housing for the poor, is what it was called back then. Single room occupant housing, literally right across the street. And I was going to do my thesis on it. Well, you know, I'm a creative type. I get to change my mind. The next week, I'm flying from Los Angeles, and Sid and I sit next to Blake Makowski. How many people here own a pair of Tom shoes? Show of hands. I'm wearing mine today. Show some respect. So there we are. We're sitting on the plane. I said to Blake, hey, nice to meet you. I had no idea who he was. And I said, Blake, what do you do? And he goes, I'm in the shoe business. Oh, cool. He said, what do you do? I said, I'm in the real estate business. So we talk, and then he says to me, actually, I'm a social entrepreneur. Really? Actually, I'm studying that. Really? So we talk. Get off the plane, Sid and I talk, and we said, wouldn't it be interesting to take that model and see if it would apply to real estate? So in the middle of this ugliness, we have a glimpse of beauty. So here's my journey. Come with me now. I'm going to walk you through the initial stages of understanding ugly. What you're looking at is a map of the world of where I studied. Now I'm going to use the word third world. I realize it can be contentious. However, I was at UBC yesterday speaking with a well-known professor. I used the word, and she kind of went, oh. And I said, but what other word should I use? And she goes, well, the problem is if you use developing world, the people that are developing are upset, and we're using north and south worlds. I said, okay, well, I'm happy to change that, but at the moment, I'm using third world because these worlds need help. So there I go. Off I go to Mexico, study garbage dumps there, I study what's going on in Africa, South America. The 3 places I physically went to were Mexico, Cambodia, and the Philippines. And I want to take you there right now and just share with you a little bit of ugly. We ran an online ad for this, and I think the heading was "Another Day, Another Dollar," literally. That man has $1's worth of plastic on his head that took him almost the whole day to collect. He lives on less than $2 a day. So let me tell you a little bit about what goes on. This is in Mexico. How many people here have been to Puerto Vallarta? How many people here have been to the garbage dump 15 kilometers outside of Puerto Vallarta? Nobody. So here's what happens after you go and drink your cervezas and you eat and have a great time. That garbage ends up in a garbage truck. They drive it 15 kilometers away. They dump it, and people run out, and they go through it. And they look for metals, plastics, some cases food. You gotta eat. And here's one of my favorite stories. I'm at the dump. There's an older gentleman, late 70s. He's gone through the garbage. He finds a Miller Genuine Draft in the bottle, unopened. It's like you finding, you know, you do your laundry and, hey, wow, I got $50 in my pocket. That's pretty good. This fellow found an unopened Miller Genuine Draft. He wiped it, he opened it, and he handed it to me. Oh, I hate warm beer. But you know what? I drank it with him. What a great experience. You know what I was learning? That these people that live in dumps are actually pretty happy people. Don McQuaid's sitting here. We stayed overnight in a dump in Stang Manche a year ago. And the people there are pretty happy people. Right? You know, Melissa, you've been there. You've been through. You know what it's like. These are fairly happy people. But their life sucks. You know, day to day. You know, all those people that live paycheck to paycheck, that's okay. It's when your paycheck can't even feed yourself or house yourself. So here we are in Cambodia. The living conditions of people that live in a landfill community are horrible. There was a study done in 2001 of the Smoky Mountain landfill, which is the largest landfill in the world. It's now closed. It's in Manila. It's a mile wide. Sorry, I'm going to give this to you in miles. Okay, let me try it the other way. It's almost 2 kilometers, 1.5 kilometers wide, and 5 kilometers long. They found 23 distinct diseases in that dump when a guy did a study. Very bad living conditions, but people go in there because think of this, if you have to find immediate employment, you can go to the garbage dump, and you can immediately earn an income. You can feed yourself. Also, there's no daycare. And the other thing, it's interesting, if you have a family, everyone can work. The whole family can immediately go and generate an income. So the minute you want to move those kids to school, you penalize the parents. So I'll come back to that in a minute. This shot I took, I was walking with Scott Neeson through the dump. This shot is 6 years old. I was walking along the dump. This kid thinks he's in English Bay. He thinks the tide's out in English Bay. He's never been outside 2 kilometers of his shack, and he goes there every day to go for a swim. He's walked through the dump to get there. How many people think that's ugly? Some people don't. Let me keep going then. This is a typical structure, cobbled together with garbage and trash. The roof leaks. This particular one's raised up off the ground, and there's a number of reasons for that. I'll come back to it later. Here's a typical structure in a slum. I just want to remind everybody what was in that video that we opened with. There's 1.3 billion people that live in the world that live in a slum. This is what they live in. When it rains, the water goes through the roof, rats run around, there's no lockable door, there's no running water, there's no sanitation. That's ugly. However, Look hard and you might find some beauty. So let me tell you the World Housing story. Because in all that ugliness, I saw some incredible beauty. I want to start with Scott Neeson. Some of the people in the room have met Scott, but let me just share with you very quickly. Born in Australia, actually he was born in Scotland, raised in Australia, started in the drive-in theater business, went into the video business, and 5 years later he's in LA working for Fox. 2 years later he's the president of Fox International. So his buddies were Tom Cruise, Tobey Maguire. You know, he hung with most of the great shows he was involved in. He went on a motorcycle ride across Cambodia and went out to the dump and decided as a gentleman's philanthropic venture to start Cambodia Children's Fund. That was 11 years ago. The next year, he moved to the dump full-time, quit his job at the peak of his career, and still lives on the edge of the dump. Today, 2,000 people in his schools, rice and water program, medical clinic, vocational school. He's single-handedly shifted the gravity of that community. He is a social change agent, amazing person. There's a lot of people here that have met Scott, and when you meet him, you're sort of touched by an angel. His motivations are incredibly pure, and all he does is work on this. It's growing like crazy. When I met him, he didn't have housing. But he had some ideas for housing. He wanted housing. His idea was housing is a tipping point. If you take care of someone with their health needs, if you give them food and nourishment and you educate, that's unbelievably good. But what happens when you give them a home? So we gave a couple homes away and watched for a couple years. I studied what went on. This is the type of home we gave. It cost $2,500 to build. It's raised up off the ground to get away from flooding and rodents. It's also tough for a thief to go up the stairs and down. I mean, it just makes it more awkward. It's raised because you can sit underneath it. It's a living room. It's the dining room. It's the kitchen. Upstairs, there's a 3 meter by 3 meter room, and it's safe, a place to sleep. And more importantly, it's theirs. We put a solar panel on if we aren't hooked up to city. There's a rainwater collection system. And here it comes again. It's got a lockable door. I'm going to talk about that at the very end, because it is one of the most beautiful things on earth. Quick case study. The home on the left is literally a shack, but this is like a good shack. And you know what? It's so good, there were 12 people living underneath it. And there were over 20 people living in it. Some of those folks got the home on the right. So we're going to talk a little bit about what happens to the people and who gets them. We set up a micro industry, so here's how it works. Someone buys a condominium in the first world. We transfer revenue. We charge a service fee to the developer. That revenue flows to our non-government organization partner in joint venture with us. We create a micro industry. There's a factory. We hire local youth out of the dump. Those people are typically making $2 a day, and they get a big step up in income. And there's the ones in the yellow vests. They were earning $2 a day before, and now they're learning how to weld and tool safety and build a home. There is our factory in action. We can do one home a day, maybe a bit more. They're built in the factory and welded. We use a jig system, so it's pretty straightforward. They have a model home, as you can see on the left, that they can see what the end product's going to look like. But I can tell you, after they built the first one, they never looked at the model. These are smart people. And then we take them out on site. We assemble them on site. It takes about a day. You can see a finished product, and you can see one that's just, they're being assembled. Then we have a home gifting ceremony. Amazing experience. The community comes out. The people that are going to receive the home tell their story. And by the way, every story is ugly. However, and this is the good part, they have to qualify. And this is how it works. Your children have to be in school. So that's a tough one. You know, I'm taking family revenue away. So Scott Neeson has set up a program to kind of help, defray the costs of losing your child who's making $2 a day or $1 a day. So your children have to be in school. As a matter of fact, we use it as an incentive. If your children are in school and they have a high attendance record, you have a higher probability of getting a home. It's a great program. You have to be a functioning, contributing community member. If you're going to get a home, you have to have a job in the formal or informal economy. We're okay with the informal economy, but you can't be doing any criminal activity or anything like that. So there's these qualifications that we apply, and then we start to work with people that are the most deserving. Here is a picture of a woman, and she, her story was really bad. I mean, her children have been raped. She was living by herself. She couldn't make ends meet. Scott kind of goes in, checks people out. He stabilized her. He got her kids in school. He gave her some income because he gave her a microloan to start a water, like she sold bottled water out in the streets. And the interesting thing is, because here comes, does everyone like my scarf? Yeah. I wish I had 260 of them with me. I want to show a little love to Mark here. Mark, I'm going to scarf you. What's happening here, folks? These scarves were made by people in our homes, and they are the way the new homeowner connects with the homeowner in the first world. So if you see someone cruising around wearing a scarf, it means they activated, by purchasing a condominium, they activated the construction and gifting of a home. So it's kind of a cool experience, because can you imagine how many people are familiar with Vancouver House? We did a launch, Bjarke Ingels designed building, 470 some odd units. We sold like 95% of it in the first 2 months. And we had an event after, invited our homeowners to celebrate. It was an amazingly emotional night, and they were given these scarves. That's a picture of Ian Gillespie, who's the president of Westbank, who in my opinion is a genius. There's not that many geniuses in the world. The guy on the right is my business partner, and he's a genius too. Here we are, so happy that it worked. 370 homes generated from the sale of one building. Now, let's talk about Kim. Kim is 9 years old, was 9 years old when this was taken. She lived in the dump, and Scott also worked with her. Her mom is the one I talked about. She got the cart, the water cart. It's a great story because, great home. But here's the real story. I love this one. When Scott Neeson sent me an email, I always get them at 2 in the morning because different time zones. He's in Cambodia. But this is probably one of our greatest successes. I open up my email. It's from Scott. It's 2 in the morning. It says, Pete, I just want to let you know the model works. I was walking, because he's a nonprofit. You know what that means? He's constantly out there raising money. It's a big deal. He's got to constantly spend 50% of his time raising money to keep the doors open. So he has a group in from New York, a very, very wealthy guy who had his own private jet. A very wealthy guy. And Scott walks him through the dump. They get to our community. The guy is shell-shocked. He'd never seen anything like it. So he goes and sits over by this little community garden. He is just horrified, speechless. And he sees Kim's mom doing her laundry. So he goes up to her and he says, and everyone in the room at some point, if you went into a dump, this is exactly what you would do. Can I give you some money? Because that's your natural reaction. I did it the first time I went in. I just went, oh my God, I have money in my pocket. I just got to give it to these people, which actually kind of damages the situation a bit. But this guy didn't know any better. He goes up to Kim's mom and says, can I give you $5,000? Well, for him, he spills that starting his jet up, literally. And this was her reaction. Thank you, but no. I have a home, my kids in school, and I have my business. Why don't you give it to someone that needs it? It worked. Okay. Here we are, where we started. A lockable door. How many people have a lockable door? Ah, why am I not surprised? So, that lockable door, what does it mean to you? What does that lockable door mean to you? Safety. Give me something other than safety. You're a sponsor, I got to give you one of these. Privacy, big time privacy. Catherine, what does a lockable door mean to you? It's your home. That's a really good one. And because you had your hand up and I didn't acknowledge you, what does it mean to you? Ownership. Ownership, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to share with you something. The biggest thing that we can do, and nobody got this one, is you can accumulate an asset with a lockable door. When you go home tonight, when you go to unlock your door, I want you to think about this hand in the door. This is a woman opening her door for the first time. She can accumulate assets, she has security, she has safety, it's her home. And think about it, if you're going to give your key to a home to somebody, you know who they are. It's a big deal. It's your place. So I'm going to end with a video that we got, Scott, when did we get this video? About 2 weeks ago? Christmas? Oh, that's right. Scott Neeson sent it to me and said, here's your Christmas present. So I want to share that with you, and I'm going to close by thanking everyone for being here today. And we are changing our model a little bit to be more open and not so restricted to, you got to buy a condo. So please stay tuned, because you folks are going to be the change agents to get the word out and help us, because like any organization that wants to do some social good, we need the support of people everywhere. So I'm going to end with this great video. It was my Christmas present from Scott Neeson.
Let's go ahead and start the conversation. I bet you there's a lot of things that people are Okay, so form your questions in your head. You know how this works, and he's naked before you, vulnerable and all yours. I'm going to start right here. Please, everybody, tell us your name. If you could stand up and tell us your name, that would be helpful, so that we all get to know who each other are.
Thanks, Mark. Hi, I'm Vivian Chan, and first of all, Peter, I wanted to thank you for sharing your story. But more importantly, I get the sense that you've taken a very thoughtful and methodical approach about how you came up with this idea and how you implemented it. The one question that I have is that in international development, one of the after effects is that there are some negative impacts to going into a project. what have you learned about some of the hard lessons in your project, and how are you trying to overcome that?
Thank you. Great question, and I'll reframe it just so I make sure I get it. Sometimes when you try something, it doesn't work as well as you thought. And what are the tough lessons? And I'll tell you the biggest lesson we learned: if you do not provide housing with other things like education, nutrition, healthcare, and you just give someone a house, it may not work out because it's just a house. It's not a home. It's not part of a community. We had one of ours that was given as a singular gift outside of one of our communities turn into a drug house. That was a tough phone call to get. We've given, I don't know, like 230 something homes in the last year, and we've had 3 issues, and that's one of them. So great question, but I would also add to that, if you don't try, you won't learn. You got to make mistakes, make them big, make them often, and learn from them. So, it's a tough thing to go into a community if we don't have great NGOs as well, like Scott Neeson. I mean, he's like a seeing eye dog for us. So honestly, we couldn't do it without him. But great question, thank you.
My name is Craig. On that video at the end, I saw the sense of building community as well, the playground and all that. I'm just curious to know if you've heard of the Landfill Harmonic.
I have, I've seen it, I loved it.
It's amazing. I'm just curious to know if that could be built in. What they do with the Landfill Harmonic is they actually build instruments out of the garbage, and then they train the kids how to play in an orchestra, and this village was totally transformed. Like, it's amazing.
You must see this show.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you want to feel good, watch that show.
I'm just curious to know if that could be built into what you're doing, because I saw that sense of community building, and that would be powerful.
That's a great idea, and certainly one that, what do you do with the garbage? Because that's what those kids did. They built instruments from garbage, and it was stunning how great they were. But that's a great idea. We'll take that one back to the design table. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and you just look up landfill, like it's spelt, and then harmonic. That's how you find it.
Thanks, Pete. Catherine Winkler. Pete, what are some of the fundamental principles of What are some of the fundamental principles of the one-to-one business structure that we could take with us?
One of the principles of of course, we just copied Blake, so we didn't have to, think it through. What do they say? Stealing from more than 2 places is research. The principle, I think, is just, in our case, is making sure you match at the other end so that it's effective. And there's a lot of criticisms of our model and Blake's, and Blake's, I've seen it, they give a bunch of shoes away and kids run off and they give them to someone else or sell them. And that's actually not that bad a thing either, if they've got good shoes. So, but I think that if that answers the question, Catherine, it's like, be thoughtful where it goes. Try and measure it, so. Sorry, yeah.
I'm wearing garbage?
Yeah.
Oh, I meant to ask you earlier. You said that this is an indication of somebody who initiated home building through a real estate purchase. Do we all get like condos?
Yes. Yeah.
I now live at the Vancouver house?
No, your condominium is somewhere in rural Saskatchewan.
Uh-huh.
And it's really old.
That didn't work out.
Thank you. I was wondering, is your model ever been used in New Orleans or some places like Haiti, or because of the earthquake, or India? We had this famous film, Some Dog Meeting. And the second question is, I was wondering, do you involve military people to come and build? Because I find when you showed your birthday gift, you could see the contrast between the housing and the military tanks, because a lot of countries are spending a lot of money for the military and it could be used for the housing.
Yeah, great. Both questions are fantastic. I'll address the first one. You said New Orleans and Haiti, and I'm going to assume you're referring to disaster relief. That is not our model. I think the homes can be built and used for disaster relief. We're very much about community building in areas that are severely disadvantaged, not to say those are not. I mean, clearly those disasters. The amazing thing is there's so much money that goes into disaster relief. Like, it's stunning. Whereas if you look at what we're doing, there's no money there. So we've gone to fill a need, and I think from our perspective, to diversify into those markets would not, I think we got our hands full doing what we're doing right now. Your second question was, would the military or someone else be involved in the construction? Is that correct? What we've done is attempted to be very local. And we get a lot of people like yourselves, and I'm sure I'll get some communication, say, can we come and help? And we're going to say, yes, but you can't build the homes. Oh, by the way, do you speak Khmer? No. Okay, well, are you a doctor or a nurse? Because that is an international language. When someone has a broken leg, those guys know what to do like that. But it's tough because what we want is to take local youth, and it's not even youth. We want to take local people and advance them and give them skill, give them perspective. And I'll give you a great example. Some of those, our crew there, we're talking about doing an exchange to a construction site, which I actually talked to Nat Boza about at lunch once. And wouldn't it be interesting to have these people that have never been on a plane? Like that's just something that makes a bunch of noise and flies overhead. They've never been on a plane. To be able to go to a site and spend a month there and watch, a well-known developer build there and get those skills. So I know I'm rambling all over the place. Great question. I probably haven't answered it. But we wouldn't employ the military or someone else. We want to make sure it's kind of indigenous to the neighborhood and get people advancing and becoming better because of it. So thank you.
I'm going to come up here again.
Hi, my name is Baldwin.
Hi, Baldwin. Thanks for videotaping me. I'm
you're
dying
welcome.
to see what it looks like.
Hopefully it was ugly enough.
Well, you were shooting up my left nostril at one
Absolutely.
point, so
I've noticed that what you're doing, especially in the last video, is looks like you're trying to create a sense of community or create a physical community within the garbage dump community. And I'm wondering about the sort of stability of that community in the long term, especially as it relates to land tenure, because clearly, it's in a place where there perhaps is no control, but right. I'm wondering what happens when something else comes in there.
Yeah. So the question is, we're trying to build a sense of community. How's that going? And then land tenure. I'll start with land tenure. We're really fortunate. All our non-government organization partners we work with, we're working with a great one in Manila right now, and they secured land. Like that is a long-term thing. So the shortest we are might be 5 years in Cambodia. The longest would be 10. Those homes can be built in a day, which means they can be unbuilt in a day and moved in 2 days. So, our goal is to create fairly long-term land tenure. Our objective is to have those homes still standing 30 years from now. But that is an issue. We're running out of land in the landfill community. The amazing thing is all the price of the lease is going up because they can see us coming. I kind of feel like Ian Gillespie, we had a couple successes with the building and the price of land goes up around us. So, we're very sensitive to that. There is an opportunity for us to do government partnerships now. So we're in discussions, and actually I'm really excited to tell you, 2 nights ago we had a home gifting ceremony. The Prime Minister's son from Cambodia and the Minister of Housing was there. This is a big deal for us because they're looking at it going, hey, a solution. So, and then back to the sense of community. We've evolved. It started with just a cluster of homes that had a wash house. By the way, these people had never had running water in a toilet. So that was a big deal. But now we've added community gardens, playgrounds. It's driven the price of the housing up, but I think those common area amenities are great. And the long term of it, from what we can see, provided the children in school, that the medical help is there and the nutrition is there, that these people self-police. It's such a good thing. Why would you screw it up? So the community, and then the more you get children playing and they get to know the neighbors, it starts to evolve to a sense of community. Whereas if you walk through some of these areas now, it's a series of shacks. There is always a community. Make no doubt. This is, and some of the communities are amazing. But what it does is it kind of crystallizes and it's like a tipping point. They go, hey, this is like a luxury community. We get to spend more time and relax, and we have water and things like that. So Baldwin, great question. And I know I rambled on. Thanks for videotaping. You did an amazing job. New career coming.
Hi, my name's Marit.
Hi, Marit.
And I'm wondering, so you have, there's huge thousands of people in the communities. And what happens when some have the housing and they're a new community separated from the other community?
So the question, if I understand it, is you have a community, what happens, to the people that don't get a home and what's going on in the community around. Well, first of all, it's really interesting to study it. People don't walk more than 1.5 kilometers in these communities. Like literally, that'd be the equivalent of walking from here to North Vancouver if you had to walk 3 kilometers. So what we've learned is to create these micro communities. There's no question that there's a sense of envy when someone gets a home. And we like that. Because here's what happened. Hey, Baldwin got a home, but I didn't. So I go over to Baldwin and I say, why did you get a home and I didn't? Well, let's see, my kids are in school, I'm working, I'm healthy, whatever definition, because you may have been a substance abuser before. And it's like, okay, then you step back and go, well, I got to be like Baldwin if I want a home. That's a better life. So envy is not a bad thing if it's applied properly, in my opinion. So did I answer your question? Yeah, thank you for the question.
I think aspiration might be a better word than envy.
Yeah, but they are envious.
Hi, my name's Godfrey, and I was just wondering, I think a lot of similar models do like rent to own.
Right.
And I'm just wondering, do you think rent to own would ever have the same level of success?
That's a great question. And the answer is we've never thought of it. I'll just share with you our model, though. I mean, these people have nothing. They don't have a lockable door. They have no assets, so we give them the home. They're on land that has a lease, so they're paying the same equivalent of the lease payment they would have in their shack, which is probably about $18 a month. It's sort of 15 to 22. If you move to Shaughnessy, it's 22. If you're in Kitts, it's 15. But we've never thought of that. And Scott, that's an idea we should talk about, rent to own it. Maybe we can give more homes that way. Thank you for sharing that.
We're running out of time. I'm going to ask for one more question back here, and then if we have time, maybe one more. So he or she who has the best questions, cook it well.
Thanks. Thank you. Hi, I'm Melanie. I was wondering about who actually buys the garbage from the residents there. You say that they get $2 a day, and is there any way to actually work with that supply chain and see if they can be getting more for their labor?
Yeah, I mean, it's a usurious middleman, and they, buy low and sell high, and that is what goes on, but they also are a consolidator, and they're like any kind of middleman, but right now that economy is extremely efficient. You go in there, and there's the plastic guy, there's the metal guy, and, you gather and hunt, and, you get and the markup's probably in the hundreds of %, but that's just the economy.
Last one. I'm going to go back here. This back corner has been, sorry guys. Again, reminder, if you have a really killer question for Pete, use our social channels, Facebook page or the Twitter. You've heard of the Twitter, right? And we will get it to Pete and Pete will answer it, won't you, Pete?
Yeah, and I will on Twitter. I've been hiding.
Pete Dupuis
I've been hiding for 8 weeks because I've been traveling, but yeah.
Hi, my name is Shannon. I guess it kind of follows on her question, Melody's question. In terms of work opportunities, is there a option or opportunity to get these people other jobs or other forms of employment that doesn't involve them working in a garbage dump?
Great question. Is there work opportunities that are created, and our non-government organizations do that? I mean, just think about all of a sudden you're in the restaurant business. You're feeding people, you're in the transportation business, you're in all these things. So our non-government organizations, like I'll give you an example, Scott employs over 600 people to service what he does, and I'm pretty sure 90-something% of those folks are right out of the local community. I know that for a fact. And I think we can do a better job of creating those opportunities, but we're like a startup. Like every day we learn so much, and every day we make another mistake. So, it'd be great to also be known as one of the biggest employers in the neighborhood too, because think about it, construction, I don't know what the exact number is, but our construction industry in Vancouver is just a huge effect on the economy. So I know as we get going, we'll be the same, but thank you very much for the question.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me. I have a card for you.